Hello. Hello, everybody, and warm welcome to the Hyper Week second radio show. As you all know, the Hyper Week is a right management and people matters initiative to bring the community together to explore, discuss, and learn best practices about one of the biggest challenges that organizations are facing today, high potentials. I'm your co-host, Esther Martinez, Editor-in-Chief, People Matters. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all. This is our second radio show for this year's edition of the Hyper Week. Yesterday we had V. Shivakumar, President and CEO PepsiCo India, and we had a great show. This morning again, we have a great program ahead with another successful CEO joining us to share his experience and views on high potentials. We're really grateful to have so many of you listening to our program right now from around the country. Very, very excited as we have a conversation ahead this morning that all of us are looking forward. Before we get started, let me introduce you Premraj Pillai from Right Management India, our co-host this morning for the radio show. Premraj, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great, Esther. I'm feeling really excited to be here. It's such a high to host a radio program as part of the Hypo Week this year, and it's a first time, I suppose, that such a great thing has been done. So yes, Esther, I'm feeling thrilled, and a warm welcome to all our listeners from my side as well. And I'm sure you would be eagerly waiting to hear from our guest today, Sushil Mehta, Executive Vice President, India for Avantor Performance Materials.
Thanks. That's right, Premraj. We're all actually really looking forward Sushil's input. Before I request you to introduce our guest today, and for many of you, he actually doesn't need an introduction. But let me remind you that the show can also be followed on Twitter with the hashtag #HypoWeek. Please share your questions on Twitter so Premraj and I can take them to the show. Let me remind you, this is a live show on air for all our listeners. We're ready to go. You're listening to our radio show as part of the Hyper Week. So exciting. And we're all set to go. Over to you, Premraj.
Yes, so we are all set. And you are going to be so excited to be here today, not only because this radio show is part of the Hyper program, but also because we have with us a leader who believes that nurturing talent is core to the business success. He's had extensive experience in running organizations in the life sciences industry, including, working with Stella, leading global healthcare companies such as Glaxo, Becton Dickinson, and Ranbaxy. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Sushil Mehta, Executive Vice President, India for Avantor Performance Materials. Thank you, Sushil, for accepting our invite. It's a privilege to have you with us on the show.
Thank you very much, Prem, and Esther, for this opportunity and platform. And very warm good morning to the listeners on this talk today morning.
Thank you, Sushil, and welcome to the show. We're going to get started straight away to the first question to you. Remember to submit your questions on Twitter, #HypoWeek, as we will continuously be taking them from Twitter to our program as well. So, Sushil, your first question that we're really interested in knowing more about is your vision of a professional goal 20 years ago when you maybe started taking more managerial and leadership roles. What was your goal at that time, and where do you find yourself today?
Esther, actually your question takes me back in a rewinding mode to early 90s, by which time I had completed the first decade of my working career at a leading global MNC. And I had actually moved over and joined another leading Indian MNC as a national manager for their lab chemical business. And the business was small, regional, and with my past experience, I was supposed to take the business global and to be seen as a serious player amongst the peers. So that was my vision, and I'm happy to mention that we accomplished the same by growing the business 3 times the sales revenue in a period of 5 years. So that was the vision with respect to the company and the business. And on a personal self, I think the vision was to transform myself from a sales manager to a general management capability. And I'm happy to say that I was able to achieve the same at the midpoint of the 20-year period. And the learning was think big. Because I think the opportunities which came, I was able to accomplish the goals in a much shorter period than what I had originally decided. So think big was the key learning out of that.
So think big was the key learning. What else do you think were the values that really helped you in the transformation and growth, where you were really growing on new capabilities and new skills that you had really not had before? What was your North Star? What were those things that, internally and externally were driving that transformation?
Yeah, I think that's a very pertinent question, Esther. And I would say in terms of the value, I think the core value was building trust. Trust with the colleagues, trust with your managers, trust with the reportees, trust with the customers, trust with the grandchildren in the organization, and that predominantly came by walking the talk. Another element was being transparent, and I'm referring to the need to communicate vociferously, communicate all over the organization. And I think a sense of optimism and a positive thinking backed by relentless actioning. I think these were the values which helped me. But having said that, coming to your question with respect to the North Star, I think I would credit the same to my environment and upbringing which I had in the early part of my upbringing. And I was actually fortunate to be born in the newest city in the country, and that was the gift by the Prime Minister at that time to the independent India, and I'm referring to Chandigarh as a city. So I was actually born apart by 5 years between the laying of the foundation of the city and myself. So I think there was a lot of freshness which came in with respect to the environment. And also I was brought up at the university campus as my father was teaching there, and I was fortunate to get a great academic exposure, and I was also regularly amongst the front rankers in the school, and that brought in an innate sense of competitiveness and the urge to excel. So I would say that the North Star was the spirit of competitiveness, but I think backed very strongly by trust, transparency, and optimism, which means positive thinking.
Fantastic, Sushil. It's such a pleasure to hear your story, and I think all of us are listening very, very carefully, and I can see some tweaks happening, but I think everybody is really listening to every single word you're telling us. So right now we are in conversation with Sushil Mehta, Executive Vice President, India, Avantor Performance Material, on his career and life, sharing about how trust is important, how transparency in communication is a strong amount of optimism and positivity that translates into a lot of actioning and a lot of result orientation. Tweet your questions on our Twitter handle using the hashtag #HyperWeek. Prenraj, over to you.
Sure. Thanks a ton, Esther. So, Sushil, given the fact that you yourself were at one point designated as a hypo, the question is, did you know early on that you were designated as a hypo, more in terms of a notification? And if so, how did that recognition sort of change your life, in sense of what did that recognition mean to you, and how did it impact your collaboration with your peers, and particularly those who could not make the cut?
Yeah, Pillai, that's a loaded question. So I think the short answer would be, did I know? The answer is no, but I think as you go through the process, I think a sense of realism starts setting in. And I think your question actually takes me to early 80s when I had joined Glaxo. And I was fortunate that I was entrusted a managerial responsibility at Glaxo within a period of 2 years, which at those times actually took, if if I can say, above the median employee 8 to 10 years to accomplish. So I think that was the first trigger which I can say, which came to me in terms of having that potential and converting the potential into deliverance, because that is very important. So that reaffirmed, I would say, at the first time, the high potential in me to myself. And I think with respect to your question in terms of how it was, what about the other colleagues who were not fortunate enough? I have been very fortunate to have a great relationship with my peers, and I was very honest in sharing my thoughts on their development areas, their needs, and who did not get the same level of recognition, and they respected and appreciated that. So I think there was a complete openness and honesty in terms of sharing with them how they could develop themselves. And actually, I still remember in 1983, when I was a regional manager in Calcutta, one of my biggest accomplishments, which I feel, has been that all my 5 sales reps at that time, in the next few years, they were able to get a managerial responsibility. So I think that openness and honesty in terms of sharing the development needs with the colleagues, that was respected by the peers and the organization within.
Great, Sushil. So I do get a sense that, of course, there are people who make the hypo cut, there are people who do not make the hypo cut. And, so long as there's a sense of transparency, I suppose, the whole thing can be taken forward in unison, right? So having said that, we keep talking about hypos and the great success stories, but I'm definitely sure, hypos being, again, normal human beings as well, there would have been mistakes, there would have been, decisions that you had taken which sort of did not pan out the way you would have liked it to pan. So, maybe some significant, error of judgment that may have happened. And how did you sort of overcome that?
Yeah, I think mistakes are a part of learning journey. And I think the only thing which I can mention here is that it was never a sense of remorse or for a failure through a mistake. I think it was only a stepping stone in terms of making a stronger resolve with a caveat never to repeat the same mistake all over again. And to be very honest, I don't recall any decision what I think I should not have made. Yes, of course, in terms of implementing the decision, there was always a learning process. But I think as an individual, I've always believed to live in present and look at the future with optimism. And I think past is only in terms of the learning and not so much for retrospection.
Excellent, Sushil. So I do understand that, you definitely had the support of a beautiful system and structure which allowed you to sort of go out, do your own thing, and, of course, reward you for its success, but also sort of give you that space for you to actually sit and reflect and sort of, improve yourself and learn from your mistakes. So this system that you were, a part of, what needs to be, or rather, what was your experience in terms of, how this system and structure supported and enhanced your journey, as in terms of the culture, rewards, recognition, support? Which one was most helpful for you? And, at the same time, of course, every system has its pros and cons. Were there some elements that you think, you didn't like, and were you to run a hypo program today and design it, you would not sort of put that element in that process/system? So, a little bit on that also, please.
Prem, I think when you ask me that, I will put my 35 years of experience into 3 buckets. One working with the global MNCs for a ballpark period of about 10 years, working with the Indian MNC again for about 10 years, and then working with private equity. I think the environments, and I was fortunate, I think probably it happened in that sequence also. Because when I reflect back the experience and the opportunity in a global MNC, I think the learnings were with respect to self-discipline, respect for individuals, following a structured approach to achieve the goals. Having said that, there were challenges with respect to hierarchy, cross-functional decision-making, and when I moved from that environment to Indian MNC, I think the learning was with respect to growth. I think the big, hairy, audacious growth. And also, I would say, the courage to take risks, and to some extent, and I think I'll put with a caveat, break the rules. When I'm saying, and I'm referring to the, first break the rules, and I think probably that book also came at that time by Buckingham and Kaufman, and which means, that doesn't mean you are putting the compliance to the window, but I think the risk-taking ability, and I think that was the learning of being part of that fast-growing Indian MNC. And I think in the private equity, it transforms from a professional management to a sense of entrepreneurship. With your skin in the game, your risk-taking ability goes high. But I think more importantly, as an entrepreneur, your ability to anticipate and deliver more success on the risk, that becomes more, if I can say, your expertise or your ability. So the different structures gave a different learning, but I think the key point is the ability to adapt to these environments on a continual basis. And I think that ability to change and reminding yourself that change is the only thing which is permanent, and doing it with a lot of fun factor. And when I say fun, and I think I have always used it as an acronym, F for fierce optimism, U for unloading historical baggage continuously, and N for neutralizing roadblocks. So I think this has been the overall philosophy. So I would say, I think environment gives you a great opportunity. And I don't think as a hypo, we can ever find environment as frustrating, because I think it is upon the hypo to challenge the environment, and if not possible, possibly seek another environment. And I think that has been my philosophy. But having said that, I think I was very, very fortunate to have this great environments in great companies in terms of continual learning and leadership, which continues till today.
Thank you, Sushil. Over to you, Esther.
Thanks. I'm listening, Prem and Sushil, about your conversation, and I think we are all enjoying every single word. Your journey is so inspiring, from the early days on self-discipline and respect of individual to as you grow in your career, courage and risk and entrepreneurial spirit comes in, always with that overlay of understanding the need for adapting to change is so beautiful. And I love your framework of fun. And really seeing that the environment is an opportunity. Now, what I want to take you, Sushil, is to drawing to all these experiences. You work in global MNCs, private equity, Indian multinationals, and you yourself have seen your own career and many of your colleagues around you. As the CEO of the organization, how do you institutionalize that learning to really create as many high potentials as possible in the organization? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, and I think that is what is most important, because whatever your personal experiences and learning and the rewards come to your way, that should be translated back to the organization or to the society and so on. So I think if I look upon our own organization, I think we have a process which is done through 3 or 4 activities. First of all, I think as an organization, we believe very clearly in goal setting at the beginning of every year, and these are SMART goals. There is a half-yearly review and the yearly PMS which we do on these goals. Then we conduct a lot of development centers for the hypos. We, as an organization, believe in always keeping it at the back of the mind that we have to give more and more to hypos. We have to always work through a situation where we give a newness to their job and responsibility, because I think the cornerstone for a hypo is the urge to do more. And so we at times give them some critical projects in the organization which are beyond the roles. I think apart from that, there is a continuous process of measurement and monitoring through on-the-spot feedback, which is given by the concerned manager to these set of identified individuals. So I think these are some of the initiatives which we imbibe and implement, I would say, on a day-to-day basis. So I mentioned about a half-yearly review and PMS, but I think that happens in each and every interaction with those identified set of people within the organization.
So, Sushil, one of the things that I think worries us a lot as business leaders, HR leaders, is how do we really retain those high potential? There's a lot of effort that goes into identifying them, creating structures around them to develop them. How do we keep that engagement and that going? So hence we are able to retain them for longer time. What are your views on that?
That, Esther, is a challenge, and if I again reflect back in the last 3 decades, I think it is becoming a bigger and bigger challenge with the aspirations. And I must say, today's hypo is much more capable. Today's hypo is much more efficient than somebody like me who started the career in early 80s. And accordingly, the aspirations are more, and accordingly, the organization challenges to retain are more. So I think it tantamounts to one thing, and that means ensuring and monitoring, first monitoring and then ensuring the engagement level of that hypo by understanding his or her specific aspirational needs. So there has to be a very clear identification and mapping of that, and I think it will be on a case-to-case basis. And that's the process which we, I think we have advantage because we are a small to medium scale enterprise. It will be difficult for me to think how to institutionalize that in a larger organization, but I think that's the advantage which we have in the organization of our size, and we are able to, I would say, that has helped us manage the retention at the top of the organization, and which has resulted in better than market growth rates for the organization over the last 10 years, which I am referring to.
Thank you, Sushil. You have been listening to Sushil Mehta, Executive Vice President, India, Avantor Performance Material. This is a live show on air, and we are at the Hyper Week radio show. We are coming to the end of the program, and this has been so exciting, really. I find it very, very difficult to even summarize all the fantastic learning that we've got today from you, Sushil. I see so many of you have been joining us from the beginning, and you've been actively listening to our guest today. The program will also be available as an archive, so please feel free to share that with your colleagues and your friends so they all can benefit. Before we close our program, Sushil, I have one last question for you, and we asked that yesterday to chiefs from PepsiCo as well. Many of our listeners today are hypos themselves. What's your message to them?
I think the message which I would like to share with the hypo is the desire, which I'm sure must be there, of graduating from a hypo to a leadership stature. And I think when I refer to the hypo, it has the element of potential and the performance. And when we're talking of the leadership, I think we need to bring in the personality and the managing of the perception of the individual within the organization, because hypos should leverage their potential and the performance to transform into great leaders. And I think that is what would be a message to the hypos, because that will be the contribution to the organization, to the overall growth of the society and the country and so on.
Thank you, Sushil. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of our super exciting radio show of the Hypo Week. We would like to thank Sushil Mehta, Executive Vice President, India, Avantor Performance Materials, for being a fantastic guest this morning. Thank you, Sushil, for sharing your insights and experience.
Thanks, Esther. Thanks, Prem, for this opportunity and platform. And thanks to the listeners.
Thank you. Before I thank Prem as well and close the program, just a reminder, you can follow what's happening at the Hypo Week at the People Matters website, www.peoplematters.in, and register for upcoming activities this week. You can also follow #HypoWeek on Twitter. The show will also be available for you to listen, as I said before. Please share it with your colleagues and friends. Of course, I will thank you to you, Prem, for being such a great co-host this morning, and to your complete team at Right Management for such a great support.
You're welcome, Esther, and thank you very much. And thank you, Sushil, as well, for this great event. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks each one of you. Thanks each one of you for tuning in today. We're live on air. This has been yet another great show. Thank you all our listeners for participating on Twitter as well. We will tune in again for the planned activities of the Hypo Week. Stay tuned. And as we close the program today, we wish you a great and inspiring day ahead.